This skinny American soldier was forced by Japanese soldiers to lift a log, although the wood was not heavy, but the long-term hunger made the US soldiers exhausted. Japanese soldiers said, "If get on the knees and beg for mercy, then let him go." But American soldiers still rely on willpower, lift the wood up after strain every muscle. The Japanese officer was so angry he told his men, if put down the wood without begging for mercy, then kill him on the spot. The American soldier was holding the wood and shaking it non-stop, has almost reached the physiological limit, but he hasn't given up yet. As time goes by, Japanese officers' face changed from pride to fear. Other prisoners began to stop working, cheer for him. American soldiers understand, now he represents not a person, but their army and country. He stared into the eyes of the Japanese officer. See the fear in the other person's eyes, the soldier roared. This is a movie. Films based on true events of World War II. Amuri prisoner of war camp in Japan. Most of them are American prisoners of war. Japanese military officer named Watanabe, looks gentle and handsome. Actually he is a pervert. He always held a thick bamboo pole in his hand. If he was not happy with someone he would directly draw it. He would abuse prisoners of war. If he had nothing to do, American prisoners of war live in fear every day. To survive everyone has to bear, try to suffer as little as possible. But how could the Japanese army let them go so easily? Japanese soldiers put on overcoats in winter, but the American soldiers shivered from the cold. One day the Japanese soldiers felt too boring and thought about an idea to race tortured prisoners of war. American soldiers can't get enough to eat every day but have to work. Compared with the Japanese soldiers, who have a lot of nice food every day, how can they win? Louis ran and fell down. Watanabe found another reason to beat up Louis. His comrades dare not speak out. The news of the Japanese defeat at the front was heard by the prisoners of war, and from time to time there were US fighter planes appearing in the sky. They have hope for survival. At the same time Watanabe's heart became more and more uneasy. Behavior was becoming more and more brutal. If there was nothing wrong he ran to the camp, beat up Louis to vent his anger. One day Watanabe beat a prisoner again to demonstrate. This prisoner was beaten to a bloody mess. Louis said to his comrades, he wanted to kill Watanabe and die together. His comrades told him that the probability of wanting to kill Watanabe is 0. Only he survives, that's the way to win, then have a chance to kill Watanabe. Living is the greatest harm to Watanabe. A few days later several Japanese officers invited Louis to town and gave delicious food and drink. Louis didn't care what the purpose of the Japanese officers were. He wolfed down the dishes. Waiting for him was Watanabe's even more crazily beating. Today Watanabe thought of a new trick. He ordered all prisoners to punch Louis in the face one by one, to defeat Louis' will. Comrades refused to execute. Watanabe began beating the other wounded. For the sake of comrades not to continue to suffer, Louis begged his comrades to hurry up. It is better for one to suffer than all to suffer. Comrades, for their own lives and the lives of others, had to hit him hard in the face. This farce was not over until night falls. Louis had blood all over his face and passed out, but his desire to survive was very strong. Louis survived. He knew the more days to live the more hurt to Watanabe. Soon after Watanabe was transferred to work elsewhere. Although the faces of the prisoners were expressionless, they were very happy. They can finally relax for a while. But the good times didn't last long. One night American warplanes bombed the surrounding area. There was a fire in the camp, but there was no one to put out the fire. Everyone wants this place to be burned to the ground, so they can be free. Unexpectedly, the Japanese transferred them to another concentration camp. It was more hidden and more tormenting. What's more frightening was that the devil Watanabe was the commanding officer there. When Louis saw Watanabe and he closed his eyes and almost faint, Watanabe was very unhappy, picked up the bamboo pole again and gave another severe beating. The Japanese are working the next day. Watanabe saw Louis limping around. He thought of a way to destroy his willpower. He ordered Louis to lift heavy wood. Louis looking at the wood, he thought he might lose. But when he saw Watanabe's ugly face, and other comrades also stopped what they were doing to cheer him up, Louis did his best to lift up the wood, and stared at Watanabe's eyes. Watanabe was scared. He looked at the thin man in front of him in surprise. Tortured him for so long, but he didn't expect that this man could lift upward, and also dare to look him in the eyes. He was so scared. Although Louis was knocked down, Watanabe knew he lost. He fell to his knees in despair and cried bitterly, because in his opinion if Louis can't be beaten, so can't America. Not long after the United States dropped the atomic bomb, Japan announces unconditional surrender. One more moment, the roar of fighter planes was heard in the sky. The US fighter planes were coming, and threw a lot of supplies. Prisoners were cheering and celebrating victory. The Japanese soldiers also put down their guns. Louis came to Watanabe's room. He wanted to see what kind of person this devil was. But in the room, only a photo of Watanabe and his family. Suddenly Louis dropped all hatred. Louis looked at the child in that picture. He knew that Watanabe was also his father's victim. The heart that wanted revenge suddenly let go. He did not continue to look for Watanabe. At last, he returned to the United States, and his family excitedly hugged together.